The chamber on Varan Prime was massive, stretching upward for what seemed like miles. Light filtered through crystalline walls that had stood for 10,000 years, casting rainbow patterns across the floor where representatives from 47 different species gathered. Some breathed oxygen like humans did. Others required specialized environmental suits filled with ammonia or methane. A few existed as pure energy, contained within magnetic fields that hummed softly in the vast space. Commander Jake Morrison watched the transmission from his office on Mars' Orbital Command Center. The view from his window showed the red planet below, its terraforming stations glowing like small suns across the surface. He had been expecting this call for weeks, but seeing it actually happen made his stomach tighten. The speaker at the Galactic Council was a being called Kree, the High Chancellor. He looked like a massive turtle standing upright, his shell covered in ornate symbols that glowed with soft blue light. His voice came through the translator as deep and resonant, filled with authority that came from leading the Council for over 60 years. "The matter before us today concerns the species known as humans," Kree announced. His words echoed through the chamber and across the Ansible network that connected civilizations throughout the galaxy. "For 3 decades, we have watched them expand. For 3 decades, we have extended patience and tolerance. That patience has reached its end." Jake leaned forward in his chair. Around him, other officers had stopped their work to watch. Lieutenant Sophie Barnes stood near the back wall, her tablet forgotten in her hands. Captain Ben Hughes had come in from the flight deck, still wearing his pressure suit. Nobody spoke. On the screen, a Vrelian representative stepped forward. The Vrelians were warriors, tall and covered in scales that shifted colors based on their emotions. This one's scales showed deep red, which Jake knew meant anger or concern. "Humans have colonized 72 star systems in just 30 years, the Vrelian said. His words came out harsh even through translation. "They build warships at a rate that exceeds all other species combined. Their expansion is aggressive. Their military buildup is unprecedented. They represent a threat to galactic stability." Another representative spoke, this one a Korthian who looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. "We have tried diplomacy. We have offered guidance. They ignore our recommendations and continue their expansion. They do not respect the ancient boundaries established by this council." Jake felt his jaw clench. The ancient boundaries they mentioned were lines drawn on maps by species who had never asked humans if they agreed. Earth had joined the galactic community only 40 years ago, after one of the council's survey ships had detected their radio signals. Everything had changed after that. Admiral Lisa Grant appeared on Jake's secondary screen. She was calling from Earth, from Strategic Command Headquarters deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her expression was unreadable. "Are you watching?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Jake replied. "Get ready to implement Protocol Nightfall," she said. "I think we both know how this vote is going to go." On the main screen, High Chancellor Kree was calling for the vote. 47 species, 47 voices that would decide humanity's fate. The vote wasn't about whether humans should exist. It was about whether they would be allowed to keep existing beyond their current territory. The representatives voted one by one. Each species had debated internally, reaching consensus through whatever methods their culture preferred. The results appeared as symbols on the massive display behind Kree. Green for acceptance, red for rejection, yellow for abstention. Red, red, yellow, red, red. Another yellow, more red. Jake watched the pattern emerge. Only 3 species voted green. The Talvarians, who had established friendly trade with human colonies, voted in humanity's favor. The Dresh, a species of peaceful philosophers, abstained from judgment. Everyone else voted red. "The vote is complete," Kree announced. His voice carried weight, but also something else. Sadness, maybe, or regret. By overwhelming majority, the Galactic Council has reached its decision. Humanity is hereby prohibited from expansion beyond their current territorial holdings. All human vessels must withdraw to the Sol system within 6 standard months. Any human presence beyond these boundaries after that time will be considered an act of aggression against the Galactic Council and its member species. The transmission ended. For a moment, Jake's office was completely silent. Then Sophie Barnes spoke up from the back. 6 months, she said quietly. "They're giving us 6 months to abandon 71 star systems." Ben Hughes pulled off his helmet, his face red with anger. We have 6 million people on New Dallas alone. 12 million on New Virginia. They expect us to just leave them? Jake stood up and walked to the window. Mars stretched below him, its surface dotted with cities and farms. Human cities. Human farms. Built with human sweat and human dreams. They don't expect us to leave, Jake said. They expect us to refuse so they have an excuse to attack. His personal comm unit buzzed. It was Admiral Grant again. But this time the call was marked with a priority code that Jake had only seen once before, during a training exercise 5 years ago. Commander Morrison, you are hereby ordered to implement Protocol Nightfall. Authorization code Alpha 77 Tango. Acknowledge. Jake felt his heart rate increase. Protocol Nightfall wasn't just a contingency plan. It was the contingency plan, the one that Strategic Command had developed in absolute secrecy, preparing for the exact scenario that had just occurred. Authorization code Alpha 77 Tango acknowledged, Jake said. Protocol Nightfall is now active. Across human space in 72 star systems, the same message was being transmitted. On Earth, Admiral Grant stood before her senior staff. General Paul Sanders was there, along with Colonel Amy Foster and dozens of others. In the Titan shipyards near Saturn, Admiral Kevin Walsh received the order and began final preparations. On Europa Station, General Chris Bennett started coordinating with colony administrators. The message was simple. The Armadas were already assembling. Jake pulled up his secure terminal and entered his command codes. Files appeared that he had never been authorized to access before. Ship manifests, fleet dispositions, weapon specifications, construction schedules. Dear God, Sophie Barnes whispered. She was looking at her own terminal, seeing the same information. How long have we been building these? 5 years, Jake said, reading through the files. Ever since the Council started making noises about human expansion. The scope of it was staggering. In shipyards hidden throughout human space, humanity had been constructing warships at a pace that even the paranoid Vrellians hadn't suspected. The Council knew humans were building ships. What they didn't know was how many, or what kind. Ben Hughes was reading through fighter squadron assignments. These specifications don't match anything in the public database. What the hell is a zero-point energy core? Something that Dr. Laura Dixon invented 3 years ago, Jake replied, pulling up more files. Apparently it generates about 100 times more power than anything the Council uses. Sophie's face had gone pale. These weapons, kinetic kill vehicles, quantum disruption missiles? Jake, some of these things are theoretical. I wrote papers about them in the academy. They're not supposed to exist. They exist now, Jake said. He pulled up a tactical display that showed fleet positions across human space. Green dots represented human ships. There were thousands of them, far more than the Council knew about. They've existed for years. We just kept them hidden. A new transmission came through, this time on the public channels. President Andrew Foster was addressing Earth and all the colonies. Jake pulled it up on the main screen. The president stood in the White House, flanked by military leaders and civilian officials. He looked tired but determined. My fellow humans, he began. By now you have all heard the Galactic Council's decision. They have demanded that we abandon our colonies, that we retreat to Earth and accept boundaries we never agreed to, that we give up everything we have built over the past 3 decades. He paused, letting his words sink in. I stand before you today to say that we will not comply. The colonies are our homes. The people who live there are our families. We will not abandon them. We will not surrender our right to exist freely among the stars. Admiral Grant stepped forward next to the president. The Galactic Council believes they can force us to comply through threat of military action. They believe their numbers give them superiority. They are wrong. For 5 years, humanity has been preparing for this exact scenario. We have built fleets they don't know about. We have developed weapons they can't imagine. We are ready. Jake watched as the president's message continued. He talked about determination and courage, about humanity's right to defend itself, about the price of freedom and the cost of submission. When the transmission ended, Jake turned to his staff. Sophie and Ben were watching him, waiting for orders. Contact all department heads, Jake said. Full combat readiness in 6 hours. I want every ship in this sector armed and ready to move. Pull all personnel off leave. Cancel all non-essential operations. Where are we going? Ben asked. Jake pulled up the tactical display again. A new marker had appeared, showing a rally point just beyond. The Titan shipyards had been humanity's best-kept secret for 5 years. They orbited Saturn's largest moon in a careful dance, hidden from casual observation by electromagnetic baffles and heat sinks that made them nearly invisible to long-range sensors. Admiral Kevin Walsh stood in the command center of Yard 7, watching through massive windows as the final dreadnought received its weapon systems. The ship was beautiful in a way that only instruments of war could be. 3 kilometers long, covered in armor plating that gleamed under the work lights. Its name was etched across the bow in letters 10 meters high, Thunderbolt. Next to it, an identical ship called Ironclad was undergoing final systems checks. "Status report," Kevin said to the technician nearest him. The young woman checked her tablet. "Thunderbolt is at 98% completion. Main guns are installed and calibrated. 0-point core is online and stable. Captain Greg Palmer is aboard now running crew drills." Kevin nodded. The 0-point energy cores were Dr. Laura Dixon's masterpiece. She had cracked a problem that physicists had been working on for decades, finding a way to extract energy from quantum vacuum fluctuations. Each core could power a ship indefinitely and generate enough juice to fire weapons that would have been impossible just 10 years ago. "What about Ironclad?" Kevin asked. "Captain Maria Sanchez reports ready for departure in 48 hours. All systems green." Kevin allowed himself a small smile. 2 dreadnoughts. The Council had no idea they existed. Hell, most of humanity didn't know about them. The ships had been built in sections, assembled in secret, their true purpose known only to a handful of people. A door opened behind him and Dr. Laura Dixon walked in. She was younger than Kevin had expected when he first met her, barely 40, with dark hair usually pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore civilian clothes instead of a uniform, though she had been working with the military for years. "Admiral," she said in greeting. "I heard about the Council vote." "We knew it was coming," Kevin replied. "How are the cores performing?" Laura walked to the window and looked out at the dreadnoughts. "Better than projections. We're getting 112% efficiency on the Thunderbolt's core. Ironclad is at 108%. At this rate, they could run continuous operations for years without refueling." "Weapons? The main cannons are spectacular," Laura said, and Kevin could hear the pride in her voice. "Each shot delivers about 50 terajoules of kinetic energy. For comparison, the largest Council weapons deliver about 2 terajoules. We're talking about 25 times more powerful." Kevin did some quick math in his head. 25 times more powerful meant these ships could punch through Council shields like they weren't even there. Combined with the quantum disruption missiles that could tear apart enemy ships at the molecular level, the dreadnoughts were essentially unstoppable. "The Council is going to panic when they see these," Kevin said. "Good," Laura replied. "Maybe they'll think twice about trying to bully us." While Kevin and Laura discussed technical specifications at Titan, another operation was taking place thousands of light years away. Captain Danny Pierce sat in the command chair of the Shadowrunner, a stealth frigate that officially didn't exist. His crew was small, only 12 people, but they were the best intelligence operatives in the fleet. "We're approaching the border," said Kate Murphy from the navigation station. She was young but brilliant, able to plot jump coordinates faster than the ship's computer. "Entering Council space in 3 minutes." Danny looked at his tactical display. The Shadowrunner used technology that bent light around the hull, making them effectively invisible to sensors. They had been slipping in and out of Council space for months, gathering intelligence that Strategic Command desperately needed. "Ryan, are we ready?" Danny asked. Ryan Clark sat at the weapons station, though his real job was operating the surveillance equipment. "All scanners active. I'm picking up Council transmissions already. They're definitely mobilizing." The ship jumped, reality twisting around them as they crossed light years in seconds. When they emerged, they were deep inside Council territory, near a system called Drake and Nexus. It was a strategic location, controlling access to several major trade routes. "Oh, wow," Ryan breathed. "Captain, you need to see this." Danny pulled up the sensor data on his screen and felt his blood run cold. Ships. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. Council warships from dozens of different species, all gathering in one place. "Kate, start logging this," Danny said, his voice calm despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. "I want positions, classifications, everything." "Already on it," Kate replied. Her fingers flew across her console. "I'm counting at least 3,000 ships so far, and more are arriving." The Shadow Runner drifted through the fleet like a ghost. Their stealth systems kept them hidden, but Danny knew they were taking a massive risk. If even one council ship detected them, they would be dead before they could jump away. They're organizing into battle formations, Ryan said, analyzing the tactical data. Looks like they're preparing for a major offensive. How major? Danny asked. I'm seeing heavy cruisers from the Vrelian Empire, carrier groups from the Taldaran Collective, even some of the Korthian energy ships, Ryan said. This isn't a police action. This is an invasion force. Danny watched the display as more ships arrived. The Council was clearly planning to overwhelm humanity through sheer numbers. They probably figured that even if human ships were more advanced, there was no way they could fight 12,000 vessels. They hadn't seen the dreadnoughts yet. Get me a direct Ansible link to Strategic Command, Danny said. Admiral Grant needs to see this immediately. Back on Earth, in the mountain fortress that housed Strategic Command, Admiral Lisa Grant studied the intelligence that Captain Pierce had transmitted. The holographic display showed the Council fleet in perfect detail, every ship's position mapped and classified. 12,000 ships, said General Chris Bennett, standing next to her. Maybe more. That's their entire military capability. Not quite, said Colonel Amy Foster. She pulled up additional data. My analysts estimate they're holding back about 20% for defensive purposes. But this is still the largest fleet they've ever assembled. Lisa walked around the display, studying it from different angles. The Council's formation was solid but predictable. They were using standard tactics that had worked for them for thousands of years. Overwhelming force applied at critical points. They're planning to hit us hard and fast, Lisa said. Probably thinking we'll surrender once we see how badly we're outnumbered. Will we? Chris asked. Lisa smiled. Not a chance. Paul, what's our fleet status? General Paul Sanders pulled up a different display showing human forces. Green dots appeared throughout human space, representing ships and battle groups. First Expeditionary Fleet is assembled and ready, Paul said. Jake Morrison has 300 ships under his command, including 2 carrier groups. Second Fleet under Admiral Walsh will deploy from Titan in 2 days with the dreadnoughts. Third and Fourth Fleets are defending the core colonies. Numbers? Lisa asked. We can field about 2,000 combat-capable ships, Paul said, not counting defensive platforms and planetary militias. 2,000 against 12,000. On paper, it looked like suicide. But Lisa knew something the Council didn't. She pulled up weapon specifications and combat projections. Run the simulation again, she ordered. The holographic display changed, showing a theoretical battle between human and Council forces. Blue dots represented human ships, red dots were Council vessels. As the simulation ran, the results became clear. Human ships were faster, more maneuverable, and far more deadly. The zero-point cores gave them nearly unlimited power for weapons and shields. The kinetic kill vehicles could destroy enemy ships from ranges where the Council couldn't even detect them. The quantum disruption missiles ignored shields entirely. In the simulation, human forces destroyed or disabled over 6,000 Council ships, while losing less than 300 of their own. The simulation assumes the Council doesn't adapt their tactics, Colonel Amy pointed out. They will, once they see what we can do. Let them adapt, Lisa said. Every tactical advantage they've ever had comes from their experience in numbers. We're bringing technology to the fight that's generations ahead of theirs. By the time they figure out how to counter it, the battle will be over. A new priority message came through. It was from Europa Station, where General Bennett was coordinating colonial defenses. Admiral Grant, this is Governor Gary Henderson on New Dallas. I wanted to report that our defensive platforms are fully operational. We've got 50 orbital weapons platforms, each equipped with the new particle cannons. Plus, we've trained about 300,000 militia volunteers. If the Council wants this planet, they're going to have to fight for it. Similar reports came in from other colonies. Governor Susan Miller on New Virginia reported 200,000 trained militia members and a network of underground bunkers that could protect civilians during orbital bombardment. Commander Frank Torres from the Centauri outposts confirmed that their defense fleet was ready. Humanity had been preparing for this war for 5 years. Every colony had... The Council Enforcement Fleet arrived at New Dallas on a Tuesday morning local time. There were 37 ships in total, a mixture of Vrelian cruisers and Korthian support vessels. They emerged from jump space in a standard blockade formation, surrounding the planet like a net. Governor Gary Henderson was having breakfast with his family when the alert came through. His daughter was talking about her upcoming graduation from the Colonial University. His wife was planning a garden party for the weekend. Normal life, the kind that humans had built on this world over 23 years. The alert changed everything. Gary excused himself and walked to his private office in the governor's mansion. The building sat on a hill overlooking New Dallas City, a sprawling metropolis of 6 million people. Through the window, he could see the morning sun reflecting off glass towers and the green parks where children played. "Status report," Gary said into his comm unit. The response came from Colonel Pete Martinez, head of planetary defense. "We've got 37 council ships in orbit, Governor. They're hailing us on all frequencies, demanding to speak with you directly." Gary sat down at his desk and activated the holographic display. The lead council ship appeared, and a moment later, an alien face filled the screen. It was Ambassador Vexthor, the insectoid representative who had spoken against humanity at the council chambers. "Governor Henderson," Vexthor said through the translator. His mandibles clicked together in a way that the software interpreted as disapproval. "You are hereby ordered to begin immediate evacuation of this planet. You have 72 hours to comply with the Galactic Council's ban on human settlement beyond the Sol system." Gary kept his expression neutral. "Ambassador, this planet is home to 6 million human beings. We've been here for over 2 decades. We have cities, farms, schools, hospitals. You're asking us to abandon everything we've built." "The Council's decision is final," Vexthor replied. "Your presence here is illegal. You will evacuate or you will be forcibly removed." "And if we refuse?" Gary asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then you will be considered in violation of Council law. Military action will be authorized." Gary leaned back in his chair. He had been preparing for this conversation for months, ever since it became clear that the Council would never accept human expansion. "Ambassador, let me be very clear. We will not be leaving. This is our home. These people are citizens of Earth, but they're also citizens of New Dallas. They have rights and I have a duty to protect them. If your fleet attacks this planet, you will be committing an act of war against humanity." Vexthor's scales rippled in what might have been surprise or anger. "You dare to threaten the Galactic Council?" "I'm not threatening anyone," Gary said calmly. "I'm simply stating facts. You want to remove us by force? You're welcome to try, but I promise you it won't be as easy as you think." He cut the transmission before Vexthor could respond. Then he opened a channel to Colonel Martinez. "Pete, activate all defensive platforms. Get the militia to their stations. And contact Captain Nicole Bradley. Tell her we're going to need her." Captain Nicole Bradley was already on her way. She commanded the destroyer Valiant, one of the newer ships built in the secret yards. Her crew was small, only 200 people. But the Valiant packed enough firepower to take on ships 10 times her size. "We're 40 minutes out," Nicole told her tactical officer, Lieutenant Sam Porter. "What's the Council fleet doing?" "Standard blockade formation," Sam replied, studying his displays. "They've positioned ships at all the major orbital points. Looks like they're trying to cut off any escape routes." Nicole smiled grimly. "They think we're going to run, aren't we?" asked Ensign Rachel Torres from the helm. She was fresh out of the academy, this being her first real assignment. "Run from 37 ships?" Nicole said. "Rachel, we're about to show you why humans don't run. Sam, power up all weapon systems. Load the kinetic kill vehicles in tubes 1 through 6, and get me a direct line to Governor Henderson." The Valiant dropped out of jump space about 50,000 kilometers from New Dallas. Instantly, the Council ships detected them and began transmitting warnings. "Human vessel, you are ordered to stand down and withdraw immediately. This planet is under Council authority." Nicole ignored the warnings. "Sam, target selection. I want firing solutions on the 3 closest cruisers." "Captain, there are 37 of them and 1 of us," Sam said, though he was already working on the targeting solutions. "I know. That's why we need to hit them hard and fast. Show them what we can do." On the lead Council ship, Ambassador Vexthor was watching the human destroyer approach. He couldn't believe their audacity. 1 small ship against an entire enforcement fleet. "Commander, prepare to disable that vessel," Vexthor ordered. "Use minimum force. I want them alive to face trial for their defiance." The Vrelian commander nodded and gave orders to 3 of his cruisers. They were massive ships, each one 5 times the size of the human destroyer. They moved to intercept, their graviton beam weapons charging. What happened next would be studied at military academies for decades. The Valiant fired first. 3 kinetic kill vehicles launched from her tubes, traveling at a significant fraction of the speed of light. They were simple weapons, really. Just dense metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. No explosives, no energy beams, just mass and velocity. The first projectile hit a Vrelian cruiser amidships. At that speed, it didn't matter that the cruiser had shields. The kinetic kill vehicle punched straight through them like they weren't there, and then punched through the hull, and then kept going out the other side. The cruiser's internal structure couldn't handle the shock. It broke in half, atmosphere and debris spewing into space. The second and third projectiles hit their targets a fraction of a second later. Same result. 3 Council cruisers disabled or destroyed in the time it took to blink. On the Valiant's bridge, Rachel Torres stared at her display in shock. "We did that?" "We did that," Nicole confirmed. "Sam, reload tubes and find me 3 more targets. Helm, evasive pattern Delta. Don't let them get a clean shot at us." The Council fleet was in chaos. They had never encountered weapons like this. Their shields were designed to stop energy beams and explosive missiles, not solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Vexthor was shouting orders, but his commanders didn't know how to respond. The human ship was smaller and faster than anything they had. It dodged their graviton beams effortlessly, as if it could predict where they would fire. "All ships concentrate fire on that vessel," Vexthor ordered. "Bring it down now!" But the Valiant was already firing again. 3 more cruisers took hits, their hulls punctured and their systems failing. The human ship moved through the Council formation like a shark through a school of fish, striking and dodging, never staying still long enough to be targeted effectively. On New Dallas, Governor Gary Henderson watched the battle from the Planetary Defense Center. Holographic displays showed the orbital space above the planet, with the Valiant represented as a blue dot moving among the red dots of Council ships. "How is she doing that?" asked Colonel Martinez, watching in amazement as another Council ship went dark. "Training and technology," Gary replied. "Captain Bradley is one of our best tactical officers, and the Valiant has systems that the Council has never seen before." The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, 12 Council ships had been destroyed or disabled. The rest were retreating, jumping away in disorder. The Valiant had taken some hits, her shield strained and her hull scored by near misses, but she was still fully operational. Nicole opened a channel to the governor. "New Dallas is secure, sir. The Council fleet has withdrawn." "Outstanding work, Captain," Gary said. "Return to orbit and stand by. Something tells me they'll be back with reinforcements." News of the battle spread across the Ansible network within minutes. On Earth, President Andrew Foster was meeting with his military advisors when the report came in. "1 ship against 37, and we won?" asked General Chris Bennett, reading the tactical analysis. "1 of our ships against 37 of theirs," Admiral Lisa Grant corrected. "The technology gap is even wider than we projected. The Council's shields are useless against kinetic weapons at those velocities." President Foster stood up and walked to the window of the Oval Office. Outside, it was early evening in Washington. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "The Council thought they could intimidate us. Now they know we can fight back. It also means they'll escalate," said General Paul Sanders. "They can't afford to look weak, not after losing 12 ships to a single destroyer." The president turned back to face them. "Then we need to send a message. Something that makes our position absolutely clear. Lisa, how soon can we deploy the first expeditionary fleet?" "Admiral Morrison reports ready to move within 12 hours, Lisa said. "Then move them," the president ordered. "I want 300 of our best ships positioned at the edge of Council space. Not attacking, not threatening, just there, visible. Let them see exactly what they're dealing with." 6 hours later, President Foster addressed the nation and all the colonies. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the carrier Unity, watching through the viewports as his fleet assembled beyond Neptune's orbit. 300 ships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering and determination. Cruisers and destroyers formed precise formations. Fighters launched from carrier bays performing coordination drills. Supply ships moved between the battle groups, ensuring everyone had what they needed. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled in one place, and it was only a fraction of what they could field if necessary. "Final status check," Jake said to his operations officer. Commander Bill Harris checked his displays. All ships report ready, sir. Weapons armed, shields at full power, jump drives charged. We can move on your order. Jake nodded and pulled up the tactical display. A holographic representation of local space appeared above the command table, showing the positions of every ship in his fleet. Green dots for human vessels. The area ahead, toward Council space, was empty on the display. But Jake knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. Communications. Open a channel to all ship captains, Jake ordered. Lieutenant Tom Parker worked his console. Channel open, Admiral. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were good people, well-trained and professional. Many of them were young, barely out of the academy. They had never been in a real battle before, but they were ready, and they believed in what they were fighting for. This is Admiral Morrison to all ships. Jake began, his voice steady and clear. In a few minutes, we're going to jump to the neutral zone between human and Council space. Our orders are to establish a defensive position and wait for the Second Fleet to join us. We are not going to attack unless attacked first. But make no mistake, if the Council wants a fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. He paused, letting his words sink in. I know many of you are nervous. This is your first deployment into a potential combat zone. That's normal, but remember your training. Trust your officers, trust your shipmates, and trust in the technology we've built. Our ships are faster, more powerful, and more advanced than anything the Council has. We have the advantage. We just need to be smart about how we use it. On the bridge of the destroyer Valiant, Captain Nicole Bradley listened to Admiral Morrison's speech. Her ship had been repaired after the battle at New Dallas, the damaged sections replaced and the shields reinforced. She was ready to fight again if necessary. Squadron leader Beth Collins reports all fighters ready, her tactical officer Sam Porter said. Nicole nodded. Beth commanded the Valiant's fighter wing, 12 small but deadly craft that could outmaneuver anything the Council could field. She was one of the best pilots in the fleet, with reflexes enhanced by neural implants that let her react in milliseconds. Tell Beth to stay sharp, Nicole said. Once we jump, we might have company. Admiral Morrison's countdown began. All ships prepare to jump on my mark. Navigation coordinates are locked? Confirmed, sir, replied his navigation officer. Jumping to neutral zone, sector 77 Alpha. All ships, Jake said. Jump. 300 ships disappeared in flashes of twisted space. For a moment, the area beyond Neptune was empty. Then they were gone, crossing light years in an instant. They emerged at the edge of the neutral zone, a region of space that technically belonged to no one. Stars glittered in the darkness around them, and on their sensors they could already detect Council ships in the distance observing them. We've got company, Bill Harris said, studying the sensor data. I'm counting about 50 Council scout ships. They're keeping their distance, but they're definitely watching us. Jake had expected this. Let them watch. That's why we're here. Open a broad-spectrum transmission. I want every Council ship in range to hear this. Tom Parker nodded. Channel open, sir. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet, commanding the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. We are positioned in neutral space as a defensive measure. We have no hostile intent toward any Council species. However, we will defend human territory and human citizens against any aggression. We hope this situation can be resolved peacefully, but we are prepared for any outcome. The transmission went out across all frequencies. Jake knew it would reach the Council leadership within minutes, probably causing panic. A fleet of 300 human warships sitting at their doorstep was not something they could ignore. While the First Fleet established their position, something else was happening in the Titan shipyards. Admiral Kevin Walsh stood in the command center, watching as the final preparations were completed on the dreadnoughts. Thunderbolt and Ironclad are ready to depart, reported Dr. Laura Dixon. She had been working non-stop for the past 48 hours, making sure every system was perfect. 0-point cores are stable. Weapons are calibrated. Shields are at maximum efficiency. Kevin allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. These ships represented 5 years of secret work, 5 years of careful planning and construction. They were the ultimate expression of human technological advancement. Captain Greg Palmer, status of Thunderbolt, Kevin said into his comm unit. Greg's voice came back immediately. All systems green, Admiral. Crew is at stations. We're ready to show the Council what we've built. Captain Maria Sanchez, status of Ironclad, Kevin continued. Ready and waiting, sir, Maria replied. Let's go make history. Kevin turned to his operations staff. Begin deployment sequence. Second Fleet launches in 30 minutes. The Second Fleet was smaller than Jake's force, only 150 ships. But those ships included the 2 dreadnoughts plus advanced cruisers and destroyers equipped with the latest weapons. It was a force designed not for occupation or patrol, but for pure combat power. As the ships began moving out from the Titan yards, sensors across human space tracked their progress. Strategic Command on Earth monitored their every move. Colony administrators watched nervously, hoping these ships would be enough to protect their homes. In the council chambers on Veron Prime, the emergency session had been going on for 6 hours. Representatives were exhausted, frightened, and increasingly divided about how to respond to the human threat. 300 ships, the Vrelian military commander was saying, pointing at the holographic display, positioned at the neutral zone. It's a clear provocation, or a defensive measure exactly as they claimed, countered a Talvarian representative. They're not in our space. They're not attacking anyone. They're just there. Showing us their strength, Vexthor added, his mandibles clicking with agitation, trying to intimidate us into backing down. High Chancellor Kree studied the display. The human fleet was arranged in a defensive formation, their positions carefully chosen to cover multiple approach vectors. It was a smart deployment, one that showed tactical sophistication. What about our fleet at Dracon Nexus? Kree asked. 12,000 ships, the Vrelian commander replied. Fully assembled and ready to move. We significantly outnumber them, do we? Asked the Korthian representative. After what happened at New Dallas, can we truly say we have the advantage? The chamber fell silent. The battle at New Dallas had been a wake-up call. One human ship had destroyed 12 council vessels. If that ratio held at larger scales, then numbers might not matter as much as they thought. We need more intelligence, Kree said finally. What else do we know about human military capabilities? A junior analyst stepped forward, looking nervous about addressing the council directly. Our scouts have been observing the human fleet. We've detected energy signatures we've never seen before. Their power generation seems to be orders of magnitude higher than ours. And they're using some kind of instant communication system. Our best guess is quantum entanglement, but on a scale we didn't think was possible. What does that mean tactically? Asked the Vrelian commander. It means their fleet can coordinate instantly across any distance, the analyst explained. No communication lag, no delays. They can adapt to changing conditions faster than we can. The implications were staggering. Council fleets relied on traditional communications that traveled at light speed. For large-scale operations, that meant several minutes of delay between orders being given and received. Humans apparently had no such limitation. There's more, the analyst continued. We've detected unusual gravitational readings from the Titan area. Our scientists believe the humans have been building something large. Very large, but we don't have specific details. The Second Fleet emerged from the Saturn system like an iron fist. Admiral Walsh's flagship led the way, followed by the 2 dreadnoughts. The Thunderbolt and Ironclad were imposing even at a distance, their massive hulls gleaming under the distant sun. All ships, this is Admiral Walsh, Kevin said over the fleet-wide channel. We're joining the First Fleet at the neutral zone. Jump in 3 minutes. On the bridge of the Thunderbolt, Captain Greg Palmer reviewed the tactical data one more time. His ship was 3 kilometers of armor and weapons, powered by technology that could generate more energy than some small stars. The main cannons could deliver 50 terajoules per shot. The quantum disruption missiles could tear apart enemy vessels at the molecular level. Crew, this is the captain, Greg announced. In a few minutes, we're going to jump to the front lines. The Council is going to see us for the first time. The 2 fleets faced each other across 20,000 kilometers of empty space. On one side, 450 human warships arranged in a defensive sphere, with the massive dreadnoughts Thunderbolt and Ironclad at the center. On the other side, 12,000 council vessels representing 47 different species, each with their own ship designs and tactical doctrines. It was the largest military confrontation in recorded galactic history, and not a single shot had been fired yet. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Unity, surrounded by his command staff. The holographic display showed both fleets in perfect detail, every ship's position tracked and updated in real time. The tension on the bridge was almost physical, everyone waiting for something to happen. Council fleet is holding position, Commander Bill Harris reported. They've formed a standard battle wall formation. Very aggressive posture. They're trying to intimidate us, Jake said. Show us their numbers and hope we surrender without a fight. A transmission request came through from the Council fleet. It was marked as priority diplomatic communication, addressed directly to Jake. Shall I accept it, sir? Lieutenant Tom Parker asked. Put it through, Jake replied. Let's hear what they have to say. The display changed, showing the interior of a Council command ship. High Chancellor Kree appeared, his massive turtle-like form seated on what looked like a throne. Next to him stood the Vrelian military commander and Ambassador Vexthor. Admiral Morrison, Kree began, his voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of galactic authority. I am High Chancellor Kree of the Galactic Council. You and your fleet are in violation of Council law. You have 48 hours to withdraw to the Sol system and begin evacuation of all human colonies. If you refuse, we will be forced to take military action. Jake stepped forward, making sure he was clearly visible on the transmission. Behind him, he positioned some of his senior officers. Captain Nicole Bradley, who had already proven what human ships could do at New Dallas. Admiral Kevin Walsh, commander of the Dreadnoughts. Squadron leader Beth Collins, representing the fighter wings. High Chancellor, Jake said formally. I am Admiral Jake Morrison, commanding the Combined Human Expeditionary Forces. With all due respect, we will not be withdrawing. We will not be evacuating our colonies, and we will not accept the Council's authority over human territory. Kree's expression didn't change, but Jake could see the Vrelian commander's scales shift to a darker color. Anger or frustration, probably. You are outnumbered more than 20-1, Kree said. Your defiance is admirable but foolish. You cannot hope to prevail against the combined might of the Galactic Council. Can't we? Jake replied. He gestured, and the display behind him changed to show tactical data from the battle at New Dallas. One of our ships destroyed 12 of yours. Our technology is generations ahead of what you're using. Our weapons can punch through your shields like they're not even there. Our coordination is instant across any distance. Your numbers don't mean as much as you think they do. The Vrelian commander stepped forward. Then you're willing to die for your pride? Because that's what will happen. Even if your ships are superior, we can overwhelm you through sheer weight of numbers. Admiral Walsh spoke up from his position on the Thunderbolt. His image appeared on the transmission alongside Jake's. You assume we've shown you everything we have. Would you like to see what our dreadnoughts can do? Because I promise you, after the first salvo, you'll be rethinking your strategy. Jake held up his hand, signaling Walsh to stand down. This wasn't about threats or boasts. It was about making the Council understand the reality of the situation. High Chancellor, Jake said, his tone becoming more serious. We don't want this war. We never wanted it. All we want is the freedom to live on the worlds we've settled. To raise our families. To build our futures. Is that really worth 12,000 ships and hundreds of thousands of lives? For a moment, Kree was silent. Then he spoke, and his voice carried a hint of something Jake hadn't expected. Doubt. You speak of freedom, Kree said, but your expansion threatens the stability of the entire galaxy. Your aggression, Jake interrupted. We've never attacked a Council world, never threatened a Council species. We simply settled empty systems that nobody was using. And when we asked to be treated as equals, you voted to ban us from the galaxy. Who's the aggressor here? Behind Kree, Jake could see other Council representatives appearing on the transmission. The Korthian representative glowing with agitation, the Talvarian who had voted in humanity's favor, others he didn't recognize. Admiral Morrison makes a valid point, the Talvarian said. Perhaps we should reconsider our position. Reconsider? Vexthor's mandibles clicked sharply. They've defied the Council! If we back down now, we'll lose all credibility. And if we attack and lose thousands of ships, we'll lose more than credibility, the Korthian representative said. We'll lose entire fleets, entire generations of officers and crew. Jake watched the Council representatives begin to argue among themselves. This was what he had hoped for. Not a battle, but a debate. A moment where cooler heads might prevail over pride and anger. High Chancellor, Jake said, drawing attention back to himself. I have a proposal. A way to resolve this without bloodshed. Grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Council. Recognize our right to our current territories. In exchange, we'll agree to a treaty limiting our expansion for the next 50 years. We'll open our technology for trade. We'll participate in Council peacekeeping operations. We'll be partners, not enemies. The transmission went silent. Jake could see Kree considering the offer, weighing options. Around him, the council representatives whispered and debated. Then Kree spoke. Your proposal has merit, but I cannot make such a decision alone. The council must deliberate. We will withdraw to Draken Nexus and convene a full session. I ask that you hold your current position and refrain from any aggressive actions while we debate. Agreed, Jake said. But High Chancellor, I need your word that you won't use this time to position forces for an attack. We're here in good faith, you have my word, Kree replied. The council fleet will remain at Draken Nexus. We will not advance unless negotiations fail. The transmission ended. On the Unity's bridge, everyone let out a collective breath they hadn't realized they'd been holding. Did that just happen? Bill Harris asked.
Did we just avoid a war with a diplomatic conversation?
Maybe, Jake said. He pulled up the tactical display again, watching as the council fleet began a slow withdrawal back toward Draken Nexus. Or maybe they're just buying time to figure out a better strategy. Either way, we stay alert. No one stands down until this is truly resolved. The standoff lasted 3 days. 3 days where both fleets maintained their positions, watching each other warily. 3 days where the future of human-council relations hung in the balance. On Earth, President Andrew Foster worked around the clock with his advisors. They prepared contingency plans, ran simulations, crafted diplomatic proposals. Admiral Lisa Grant coordinated with all the colonial governments, making sure everyone was ready for any outcome. On New Dallas, Governor Gary Henderson addressed his people. The fleets are talking, not fighting. That's a good sign. But stay ready. If negotiations fail, we'll defend our home just like we did before. Similar messages went out from Governor Susan Miller on New Virginia, Commander Frank Torres at the Centauri outposts, and every other human settlement across 72 systems. Humanity was unified, ready to fight if necessary but hoping for peace. In the council chambers on Varen Prime, the debate raged for those 3 days. Some representatives, like Vexthor, argued for military action. Others, like the Talvarian and Korthian delegates, pushed for diplomatic resolution. High Chancellor Kree listened to all sides, weighing the arguments carefully. Dr. Nathan Cross, the head of Humanity's Advanced Research Division, sent a proposal through diplomatic channels. He offered to share some of humanity's technology with the Council in exchange for recognition. Zero-point energy, the Ansible communication system, advanced medical treatments, things that could benefit all species. The offer was controversial. Some human leaders worried about giving away their advantages, but Dr. Laura Dixon supported it, arguing that cooperation would serve humanity better than isolation. On the 3rd day, High Chancellor Kree made his decision. He convened the full council and called for a final vote. Not on whether to ban humanity, but on whether to grant them full membership and territorial rights. The vote wasn't unanimous. Vexthor and several other representatives voted against the proposal, still convinced that humanity represented a threat. But the majority voted in favor. 41 species out of 47 recognized that war with humanity would be devastating for everyone involved. The transmission reached Admiral Morrison within seconds of the vote. Kree himself delivered the news. Admiral Morrison, the Galactic Council has voted to rescind the ban on human expansion. We recognize humanity's right to their current territories and grant full membership in the Council, with all associated rights and responsibilities. The treaty you proposed, limiting expansion for 50 years, is acceptable. We hope this marks the beginning of a new era of cooperation between our peoples.